Friends, how are you? Today we'll learn about two incredible cases. The first happened in the province of Mendoza, very close to Ceuta, and the second on Route 3, where a family experienced something totally inexplicable. Both cases are different, but at the same time connected by a common thread that will leave you speechless. As usual, I'd like to hear your thoughts on these situations and if you've experienced anything similar. Thank you very much for joining me once again, and now let's start with this new paranormal story. Welcome. I would like to share what happened to me a while ago. It's a story that I kept precisely for fear of ridicule. I think only 2 people know about this, and today I decided to share it with the channel and with the whole community, as I feel comfortable and accompanied by thousands of people who believe in all this and, why not, also lived something similar. I am currently settled in Germany, but we have to go back years when I lived in the province of Mendoza, Republic of Argentina, and went through one of the most impressive events of my entire life. Back then, 2014, I was 27 years old and had gone with several friends to celebrate the birthday of one of the girls. We had planned it differently, as we were not much of night out people and we liked tranquility and nature more. The meeting was at the Ceuta Hot Springs, a beautiful place just 30 kilometers from Godoy Cruz. It turns out that noon we all ate a good barbecue together, then we spent the rest of the day in the pools that are on the premises, and in the afternoon each one started to return home. But in my case, we had planned with a friend to stay until the next day in a nearby cabin that we rented the day before. Once there, and when night fell, we lit a fire to grill something and end that day in the best possible way. I even had my little dog with me, one that I had rescued from the streets some time before, and she came with me everywhere.
And we stayed talking about life, we stayed laughing. I tell you that we did not use drugs, we never drank alcohol excessively. In fact, that day, we hadn't drunk alcohol, and I tell you that we accompanied that particular fire with Coca-Cola because the next day we had the idea of going out to train. We have been doing sports all our lives, so we had the idea the other day to go for a run. The mountain. Well, we finished the barbecue and we went to sleep in a room with 2 separate beds. At the foot of my bed, my little dog. David next to me in a bunk bed, he's sleeping to my left, up on the top, and I in the bed on the right. We fell asleep, we kept talking, we turned off the lights. We fell asleep with the idea of getting up early the next day, and really early we were gonna get up like at 7 to go out to
train.
We both played rugby, so I emphasize this to you so you know that we led a healthy life, really healthy.
We fell asleep, and I never imagined that something would happen. I remember waking up, but I did it abruptly. Completely alert. It was as if someone turned me on. A light, and when I opened my eyes, I found something unthinkable. I could clearly see in the middle of my bed on the left side, that is, between mine and where my friend was lying, a being. This being was completely grey. I could notice it thanks to the light coming in through the window. Its appearance was very similar to how they are represented in different books, magazines or studies on these topics based on real experiences. But there was one detail, and I would love to know everyone's opinion on this point. It didn't seem to be flesh and bone, to put it in an understandable way. It seemed more like a kind of hologram or something similar. And I say this because while we were looking at each other, I noticed that the image of this thing, and much more in its eyes, different lines seem to move. And the best example to understand what I mean is like when the television used to be in the old days
had interference.
The antenna didn't pick up the desired channel well. It was very similar to this. My reaction was to look at him intently. He was doing exactly the same. And then I leaned back, resting on the headboard of the bed. I was silent and just watched him without moving. My friend didn't wake up, but something very curious was that my little dog, who was sleeping next to me on the bed, didn't notice anything. Not even when I moved back roughly, she always woke up with the slightest noise. And that time it was as if she was completely sedated. I started calling David over and over again, but there was no way he would wake up. I looked at my dog and she wasn't moving either. The feeling was as if everything around me was on pause, turned off, dead. There was only this being in front of me, and we were looking into each other's eyes. I'm a believer, so what came out of me at that moment was to start praying. At this moment, an unprecedented event occurred. I would start a Our Father or a Hail Mary, and halfway through I would forget how to continue. I tried again, and the same thing happened. Internally, and I believe it's something natural, I thought I had gone crazy. I was looking at a being in front of me that looked like a hologram, that didn't move or shift its gaze at any moment. My friend and my dog seemed to be dead, and I, who didn't know how to react, couldn't even pray. He started to do something desperate. I considered asking him something at one point. What did he want? And automatically I realized that maybe it was a very bad idea to do this.
I remember that at the same moment I thought it, at the immediate moment, instantaneous, almost one thought on top of the other, I said no, stay quiet because I don't want to know what he's doing or what he wants. Know what he's doing or what he wants. I don't want to give him the chance to ask me for something, to ask me for permission to do something to me, to my friend, to someone we were, and I didn't want to feel responsible, so I remember that I blocked him instantly and something strange of this, that I remember that because I had this thought of trying to talk with my thought, and when I denied it, I felt outside, when I tell you outside of the cabin where we had stopped, I felt I'm gonna do it by hitting the table, but it was this, imagine as if you did it with sticks, it was like that. The clash of one wood with another wood, constant as if it were a clock, was another thing that I heard and tried to silence in my head. It was like I didn't want to receive any more information. What I was seeing already overwhelmed me, my little dog, all this. I tell you that while I was thinking and doing all these things with my spirit, I tried to keep moving my little dog so that she would wake up at that moment, in that all this was happening like in that climax of the situation. This image turned off at one point, like a television turned off. It focused on one point and disappeared before my eyes, and at the moment that light became nothing, my little dog starts wagging her tail, and I feel my friend who turns around and says to me, "What happened, brother? Are you okay? What happened?"
Because
I felt like talking. I was praying. My little dog on top of me wagging her tail, licking me, and I felt like crying. Terribly.
I didn't say anything to my friend. I got up, went to the bathroom and started crying like never before. The fear I went through was the worst of my entire life, I can assure you. While I was there crying, I thought of something that hit me all at once. My life from that moment was not going to be the same, and just as I thought it happened, my life changed radically. Until that day, it was almost normal to go to the mountain once a week in a tent alone with my little dog, go fishing with a friend, do some trekking in the middle of the mountain range. Basically, enjoying nature was something that relaxed me a lot. And from that moment, all of this became almost impossible. Do you know why? I understood that what we see, what we have around us, is not exactly what we think. There is much more that, while we may not fully understand or perceive, is there. And I'm not sure if all of this is harmless. It was very hard for me to sleep alone in my house for a long time, because I knew that nothing prevented this from happening again. These beings, or whatever they are, have total freedom to show up at any time and do with us what they want, without us knowing what they are thinking. Becoming aware of all this was truly terrifying for me.
I felt so vulnerable to something that was not material, that I couldn't control, I forced myself after many exercises. Then I literally forced myself to go back to the field alone, to go out into the field at night again, to go back. I did it again. And today I can tell you that it is an activity that I have resumed, but inside me there is no longer that innocence of before saying, well, I go out and I know that nothing can happen. At least see something, nothing has happened to me again. Thank God, I hope it never happens to me again. I don't want it to happen. When I hear those people who say, well, the topic of contact and the truth, in my experience, it was not at all poetic. Nor romantic, I experienced real terror. As a final topic, I leave you with this super weird thing I remember afterwards, though I don't know why. It's like if I had a memory that I feel I didn't live, I feel when I remember this experience that there was that being inside the room next to me, a same being behind, and a third one further back. Near the door from my bed, you could see the entrance door to cabin. As if to tell you, one in my room, one in the living room, and one with the door open, but I remember them the same shape, blue in color. I didn't see that, but I have that image in my head as if it was something I've seen.
My name is Fabian, I'm from Comodoro Rivadavia, and I'm going to tell you something that didn't just happen to me. It was something that my daughter, my wife and I experienced during a trip we made to Buenos Aires. The trip there was perfect. While in Buenos Aires, we walked around and visited a friend of mine. We actually stayed at his house, located in Avellaneda. We were in Buenos Aires for 13 days and started our return journey on the 18th of October 2006. I remember the date for two reasons, mainly because of what happened to us. It was something impressive, and also because my dad's birthday was on the 21st of October and we wanted to be with him at home to celebrate it. We left my friend's place just after 9 in the morning and started our journey back. We took Route 3, and as we had done on other occasions, the plan was to stop and sleep in Bahia Blanca. Up to that point, we had about 700 kilometers, and we had the last stretch of about 1,000 kilometers more. This first stage took a little longer because we punctured a front wheel when we were passing through Azul, and between changing it and looking for a place to eat, we lost almost an hour and a half. But luckily we arrived in Bahia Blanca around 9 at night, ate something and went to sleep. The next morning we got in the car at 6:45 in the morning, filled up with fuel and headed towards Rio Colorado, then took route 251 to San Antonio Oeste, and from there back to route 3 straight to Comodoro Rivadavia. The trip was going perfectly, listening to music, chatting, drinking mate. We stopped a few times to stretch our legs, go to the bathroom, eat something, the usual on any trip. It was about 5 in the afternoon and we were in Trelew, province of Chubut. We had a few more hours until we finally got home. We stopped in the city at a service station because my girl was feeling a bit unwell, and I took the opportunity to fill up the tank. Even though we had filled up on fuel at the entrance of Puerto Madryn, it's always good to have a full tank when you hit the road. The thing was, we ate something, had some mate, and around 6:30 we continued our journey. Before we continue, I want to clarify some details. Both my daughter, who was 11 years old at the time, and my wife slept quite a bit on the way, mainly during the afternoon. I was driving so I couldn't sleep, but I'm used to driving all day, and I could tell you it doesn't tire me out like it does other people, especially not at that time. I say this so that no one confuses, please, what happened to us with a simple confusion from being tired. We were on Route 3. I couldn't say exactly where. Keep in mind that it was a very dark route with little traffic at that time, and there is practically nothing. We had traveled about an hour and a half from Trelew and something happened.
Marked us.
To this day, the night was completely clear.
There was
single cloud in the sky, and just like that there began to be a kind of fog. And I say a kind because it was not something common that we were going through, at least not like other times, and it was only in a matter of seconds that it became so thick that there was no way to see beyond a few meters ahead. My wife was screaming at me to stop on the side, and I was thinking of doing just that, but in a gentle way, so as not to be in danger. As I start to slow down, we were going about 110 kilometers per hour. A very, very strong white light suddenly appears in front of us. The three of us screamed in desperation. I managed to slam on the brakes and close my eyes. There was nothing else to do. We clearly thought we were going to crash into a car or a truck that had crossed into our lane. But you know what? That's not exactly what happened. We actually never knew. But I repeat, this marked us until this day. We didn't crash into a car. We didn't crash into a truck. When I opened my eyes, I didn't understand anything. I look at my wife and she was silently looking outside, not knowing what had happened. My little girl, however, couldn't stop crying because she was terrified. First with the fog, then with this light, the screams, and finally with the braking that almost killed us. We were there alone. The car turned off in the middle of the road, and even though I didn't understand what was happening, I turned it on and pulled over to the shoulder to think and see if everything was okay. The car was perfect, it had no problems, my family obviously too. Yes, we were scared, but only that. The surprise came minutes later when we started and we realized by a sign that we were arriving at the town of Fitzroy. Perhaps those who are not familiar with the area did not notice this detail, but what had happened to us was totally inexplicable. The encounter with this cloud and this light was about an hour and a half from Trelew, that is about 200 kilometers away from Comodoro Rivadavia. It was totally impossible for us to be in Fitzroy with the tank almost full, and at the same time, this town is past Comodoro Rivadavia heading south in the province of Santa Cruz. This means that we had appeared about 370 kilometers from where we were in a matter of seconds, without driving and without using fuel. We were at the first service station we crossed for a few minutes, and then we started off, but this time heading north, since Comodoro Rivadavia was now in the other direction. We arrived very late, tired and quite scared. I was even more so because I felt that my family had been in danger. My wife has been very afraid to travel on the road since that time, particularly at night. We never knew what happened, why it happened. We didn't suffer any damage or aftermath that we noticed. The car didn't either, and I checked it from end to end. That day was unique for us, and yes. Although at the time I was very scared because my wife and daughter were present, sometime later I realized that thanks to them I confirmed that what happened was as real as the fear we went through. Thank you